In fact, the FDA has made no secret of its intentions to harmonise the US vitamin and mineral standards with codex, thereby reducing the dosages of common vitamins and minerals to ridiculously low levels. They've said so before Congress, in the National Register, and even on their own website.
That system is not a good system, and the dietary supplement guideline, the vitamin mineral guideline, mimics the ideas of that system and tries to push them onto the international stage for vitamins and minerals. Bad thinking all the way around.
We are at a stage in society when a large number of people, consumers and patients, are waking up to the fact that the healthcare system that they've placed their trust in now for decades is not delivering the healthcare that they need. They're beginning to appreciate that very often if they have major diseases like cancer or heart disease, that the so-called solution to these diseases is in fact killing them.
Today, all new drugs must be proved safe and effective before they can be marketed. In other words, the medicine must be safe and must do what's claimed for it.
This is why we see this incredible growth in consumer demand for natural products. And of course, just as the consumer is starting to make decisions about what they want to do in healthcare, the regulators have decided, with a lot of pressure from big industry sectors, to say, you can't have it. It's reserved for us.
When the WTO, the World Trade Organization, became a reality in the 1990s, the power of codex was heightened immeasurably. This new worldwide body, devoted solely to the harmonization of trade standards, gave codex the enforcement capability that had eluded it for decades. 2 US congressmen, a Democrat and a Republican, have a philosophical divide on free trade, but agree completely on the dangers of the WTO and codex.
The WTO is said to be set up for free trade, and I happen to like free trade. I like low tariffs, and I like goods and services flowing across borders.
I studied economics in college. I'm a skeptic of the whole theory of free trade, and it really crystallized around the NAFTA and the WTO agreements.
I am a champion of national sovereignty, so I do not like the idea of getting involved in what the founders called entangling alliances.
I remember talking to Mickey Cantor, the president's special trade representative, and I'd studied a little bit, and I said, I can't understand how we're going to bind ourselves to this agreement, which has a secret dispute resolution process, which has no rules regarding conflict of interest, and they will essentially preempt U.S. law.
And then when you go to the next step of becoming a member of the World Trade Organization, means to me that we as a people and as a Congress, we give up too much of our responsibility and our prerogatives.
I said, oh, no, you don't understand. They can't preempt our laws. I said, oh, you're right. They can just fine us for having our laws, and we can pay perpetual fines because we have laws that protect consumers of the environment, or we can repeal our laws.
But now we're talking about turning it over to a world organization that's going to force harmonization.
So it's working as designed as far as you're concerned, which is to protect corporate interests and overrule governments and stick it to consumers.
And they'll do that under the name of free trade and globalization and pretend that they're on the side of freedom. But actually they're not. They're on the side of regulations and special interests and protection of certain big corporations.
If there's a higher corporate good to be served by breaking the law, by having the FDA work with the codex and try and drag the U.S. into this nightmare, then they're all for it, and they're doing it.
So we do what the WTO tells us, and that's why I'm very leery of the WTO, and I'd just soon we get out of the WTO.
This would be like the ultimate reaching of government into our personal health lives, which would be unbelievable. And not even our government, some bureaucratic, diffuse, multinational, secretive government.
It's the power that's in the WTO that we have to deal with ultimately, and I don't like the trend.
On Capitol Hill, legislators are now debating the merits of yet another trade agreement called CAFTA, the Central American Free Trade Agreement. This latest Trojan horse was wheeled into Washington as a savior for a faltering economy. But as consumers in Europe could confirm, it will only lead to more backroom deals, deals that could spell the end of health freedom as we know it.
Now, people think that that could never happen here. Probably at one time people in England thought it would never happen there, and yet their government has ignored over 1 million signatures on petitions on this issue, saying, sorry guys, we are now a member of the European Union and we must harmonize to European law. If we aren't careful in our hemisphere, the same thing will happen as a result of the free trade area of the Americas.
But the trend towards the WTO, NAFTA and now CAFTA being used to harmonise laws and regulations to favour pharmaceutical interests has long been a reality in the European Union. German representatives at Codex began to push the idea of creating safe upper limits on vitamins and minerals, and this was favoured in the UK until Dr. Robert Verkerk began orchestrating a precise legal, scientific and public relations strategy to stop it. His organisation, the Alliance for Natural Health, brought a landmark legal challenge to the EU Food Supplements Directive. In April 2005, the Advocate General in the European Court declared that the EU directive should be declared invalid under EU law. In July of 2005, UK and European consumers will discover the fate of this legal battle, and it is anything but a sure win.
What's coming down the line from Codex and from Europe is very disturbing. First, you got 450 million people over there. Secondly, they have the most restrictive nutrient access of any of the free world. Third, you just had a woman in France arrested and is now undergoing trial for selling 500 milligrams of vitamin C tablets.
Between the draconian regulations of the EU Supplement Directive and the ominous Codex guidelines, which will be voted on in July 2005, there is little doubt that health freedom lies in the balance, in Europe, in America, and throughout the world.
The World Health Freedom Foundation is supporting this movement in Europe, because there's no question if we stop it in Europe, its effect on the United States will be less. And anyone who thinks that Codex or the European Union or the World Trade Organization, when it comes to very restrictive policies in Europe, is not going to have an effect on the United States is crazy. You got 450 million people over there. They have enormous trade with us. They deal in steel and textiles, etc. And if they are upset with our libertarian policies regarding nutrient supplements, it's going to affect other economic systems. Now, we might have sovereign protection, but good gosh, that will fly away in an instant with the stroke of a pen if a trade agreement is challenged. What's happening in Europe, just like the trade winds, is coming our way. And no one can argue in a reasonable fashion why that is not going to happen. That is happening.
It has been said many times that democracy is the dream of all who are oppressed, the hope of those imprisoned by fear or injustice. But the sad truth, that which is almost too sad to acknowledge, is that the betrayal of democracy began long ago, when profit replaced the will of the people and corporate lobbyists became the masters of the universe.
Alarm bells are going off everywhere. The American people are way ahead of the Congress and have figured this out, and it's only a matter of time until Congress is beaten into, coming around on these issues. I mean, but if we don't do it soon, it could be too late.
If it is true what a great civil and human rights leader once said, that our lives begin to end the moment we become silent about things that matter, then freedom has already begun to atrophy because of our inaction. Slowly, sovereign rights fade away, as surely as the ink on an old declaration is removed by time. The pursuit of happiness, the promise of equality, of personal choice, are chipped away by complacency, and over time become barely visible in the world around us. If we had treasured it more, some say, if we demanded government cooperation, not interference, if we had exercised our freedoms every day, every week, just like the forces of power and money have done, if, yes, if only.
I think that we should all get together and fight for our rights. I think that these are God-given rights. I think this is a legacy that was given to us at the beginning of time, and we should fight like crazy so that people can maintain their rights from now and forever.
There are some who say this is a battle that cannot be won. We are the David, they are the Goliath. But it's too important to sit it out and allow the multinational corporations and the regulators to inform us what our freedom should be. If we don't demand medical freedom of choice, we will lose it. It's critical that the people of Europe, the people of Asia, Africa, the Americas, and the rest of the world come together so that we can protect our health freedom for our generation and those of the future.
This, then, is your call to action. It is one of enlightened self-interest, a righteous cause that even the high priests of profit cannot defeat. It is a real drug war, a fight for health freedom, a struggle for human rights.
And so you get the government you deserve if you don't speak up. The only way to have good government free from all the things that are happening to us is if the citizens stand up and are not doing it. They have to stand up and be counted. And if you put enough effort, the good guys win. It needs to be done.
Modern medicine has led us to Babylon and a wasteland of expensive and often ineffective options. If we do not act, if we become silent, governments will be free to replace the teachings of all ages with toxic lies. Timeless natural medicines, foods and herbs with which we have evolved, culled from thousands of years of collected wisdom, will be swept away, crushed under the myopic weight of corporate greed. Yet we often forget how much power we actually wield, and that we are the creators of our own place on this planet. Amid the sea of faces, there is an honorable cartel forming, one for the benefit of mankind.
You must join the battle by protecting yourself and your family from health frauds. When you're in trouble, that's not always easy. But in the end, being victimized can be far worse. It can mean not only your money, but your life.